Hello viewers, my name is Adam.
And I'm Aaron.
And this is Siki Media Productions, bringing you our review for HBO's Watchmen.
I can't tell you how amazing and phenomenal this series was. As far as I'm concerned, this is on the pedestal of brilliant adaptations of work.
This series, there's been a lot of talk about how to adapt Watchmen property or anything that's dealing with source material from a very controversial comic book writer, Alan Moore.
Without question, that particular content creator is not a fan of anyone taking his material outside the medium for which he creates his work. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of wisdom that comes with it. But at the same time, when you look at individual projects, such as what was done on HBO with the series, it becomes infinitely clear that one cannot be too blind as towards how anyone else would be able to look at their particular project and pieces and not destroy them, but magnify them. Or at the very least, capture the very essence and soul which made them brilliant in the first place.
So we have basically showrunner who's no stranger to genre type storytelling, from Damon Lindelof, whose previous HBO outing, The Leftovers, is most likely the reason why he was able to be brought on board to see to this limited series. It's 9 episodes and came out back in the later half of 2019.
Very much so.
During that, coming at the very end of the last year, especially at the end of a decade where so much content was being thrown out to audiences, affairs of Watchmen was basically underlooked.
Criminally so. I mean, my God, from the very first episode to its final conclusion, and make no mistake, this was HBO has already stated that this was going to be the only season it was going to get. And to be honest with you, how it ends and how it from where it began to how it ended, that's perfect. It's criminal that people didn't get the chance to truly embrace and enjoy this piece of art.
So what is going on down in HBO's Watchmen? Well, for starters, this is a sequel series in a way for the original source material back in 1985. And that time period, it was during the heat of the Cold War. Mm-hmm. And it was dealt with a lot of political issues. And the same spirit of such political matters, mainly in the domestic sense, is carried on to this new limited series. Even though this was completely underlooked back in last year, this show is much more relevant as it has ever been. And to really discuss and face forward what is going on in today's environment, and from basically building up from decades to centuries past, the level of depth that the show goes to bring up the themes of legacy, of racial tension.
Racial tension and racial identity.
Yes, and as well as the comic book tropes that make basically modern day superheroes and the world of comic books as we know.
Mythology in its heart and soul.
And from the very 9 episodes, we are given a look into a present day scenario in which, kind of like ours, but is flipped on its head, where a lot of societal structures is a bit of a warped reality, warped version of what we come to know. And like in doing to these modern day issues, society systems of police is heavily reformed, especially in the setting of Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Taking from that, the very first episode delves deep into the very, core essence of racial tension from offbeat. I mean, emphasizing a point in history which is not commonly understood or let alone talked about or discussed in classrooms till this day is a bold move for any series to tackle. And but they do it to an extraordinary sense in Watchmen.
And it's going to very vivid detail. And the mere fact that the show is pulling for such long forgotten history and making it relevant into today's context, especially in a very superhero oriented, like stylized and basically over glorified world that we live in through our media, is very saying something about the maturity of what Damon Lindelof and co have for its audience.
But I think it's time that we, spin this down towards the actors that really brought forth the heart and soul of this series. Kicking it off, of course, with one of the series protagonists, Angela Barr, played by the phenomenal Regina King.
A very long-standing in television and movies, and she's reached a good point in her career that she's taken on roles that are finally being looked at for the talent that she has.
Very much so. The second, of course, will be Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who plays Cal Abar.
Cal Abar.
Yeah, you're right, Cal Abar.
He plays the husband of Regina King's character.
Now, we can't go into depth about his particular story arc, but trust me when I tell you that he is the highlight of this series in general, by far none. And I love this actor, I love his work, and I can't wait to see more of him, especially from what he did in this series alone.
And it, telling forth, he even appeared in, he's no stranger to DC himself, because he was played as the Black Manta character in Aquaman movie, so he clearly has a future, at least with Warner Brothers,
Very much so. Other characters like Hung Chao, Lady True, she's electric from start to finish.
And where did this actress come from?
True. I can't remember most of her work, but wow, spot on.
Immediately, the episodes she comes on, is literally she clicks.
It's like they deserve to have always been here. But make no mistake, the original characters such as Ozymandias, Adrian Vett, and Laurie
Blake.
Laurie Blake's. Wow, when they're in the series, they're amazing. Jeremy Irons plays Adrian Vett / Ozymandias. He's Jeremy Irons. There's hardly any roles that he can't do that he's not. Or when he's in the movie, he's doing his job. If it stinks or if it's amazing. Trust me, he's doing his work.
And Gene Smart, who's playing a version of Laurie Blake, who I feel as though is a natural progression from the characters, especially if you're familiar with the source material of the graphic novel. And even if you even watched Zack Snyder's version, you'll the way her mindset is in this series is very understandable. Especially when it comes to the many familiar characters from the Watchmen universe, is the mere fact that you probably will hopefully have gotten some original familiarity with the source material already, but it's it does play in a way in which it stands out to new characters. So just be mindful that if there are references from the previous work, be aware that the series do take time to address them, but I feel as though that probably not so much for newer audiences.
I guess that another aspect or way that people need to understand this particular series as being is that this is a love letter towards that comic book, between that particular graphic novel. That is exactly what this is. It is a love letter towards the Watchmen, the mythos, and the structure of that story and those characters.
But with those characters and bringing on bringing on familiar characters and introducing new ones, one of the most highlighted new characters that is very important for this series is the character of Will Reeves, who is two versions you'll see, one played by Louis Gossett Jr., who plays the much older version of this character, and Jovan Edipo, who plays the much younger version of the character in a particular episode called This Extraordinary Being. And it's a very brave role that he was able to pull off, and the storytelling of this episode is very plot heavy. When it don't want to go into details about how it gets to that point in the story, but visually, I would like to go into the production side of the series. This one per episode particular is one of the most highly stylized versions of television filmmaking that's actually been up until, especially in these modern day of golden age television.
My God. Another episode of this series that you definitely have to watch out for is, of course, the very first episode, which thrusts you into the chaotic mess, but brilliance, which is Watchmen, which goes by the name of "It's hot and we're all running out of ice."
And like it's understandable that even that's the episode is like very typical for Damon Lindelof stories.
Mm-hmm.
That the first episode is very heavy-handed and they're throwing you to the world of which he's developing, almost like a slow burn in a way. But I will say this: if you're too got caught off guard for the first 2 episodes, episode 3 is when the plot really starts showing its rear end, especially since that's the introduction to Jean Louis Blake's character.
Mm-hmm.
But on even more on the production side, the first episode is one of the more episodes, the action heavy episodes as well.
Mm-hmm.
A complaint that I do have to address in this series is something that's a little bit of a personal criticism I want to make, is that despite it being a superhero show, the show doesn't necessarily have a lot of action.
No, that's not really what the series is doing with superheroes. What it does do is that it emphasizes the mythology of superheroes within the presence of what it is to have a secret identity, the whole mythology that goes to creating a person's a persona within the costume itself, what the costume means.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
And so because in the Watchmen verse, there's only one particular character who has superhuman-like abilities.
Oh, wow.
In a way that on the production side, and especially in one particular episode, they are able to actually, in a lot of ways, better than the Zack Snyder's version, portray his powers, and it suits the story, both a narrative-wise storytelling as well as the actual, the technical aspect as well.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and say it right now, where I feel as though a lot of people probably would have already guessed, or it's been said before. The character
Don't say who it is.
No, I'm not going to say who he is. I just want to say that the character of Dr. Manhattan
Does appear in the show.
He appears in the show, and of course, like another HBO series, Game of Thrones, he is of course that mystical dragon that does reverberate in the series and is over the series head, and is like he has a presence in the show. It is definitely felt, and then when they does show that character of Dr. Manhattan, you don't forget it, and you definitely do appreciate the way he is presented and is used.
He is clearly the secret weapon of the HBO's Watchmen.
He is.
But from looking at all the angles of this show, from the incredible performances, very actors heavy roles, like mind you, Damon Lindelof's clear vision and the main directors of how they were able to construct this 9-episode limited series, how much depth that went into it and research, I will say that I will give HBO's Watchmen an amazing review.
I cannot disagree with that. It's truly, like I said, this was probably hands down one of my favorites new series that came out, and wow, they literally blew my mind.
Like I wish that I would have given this an epic if it wasn't for the fact that there was not a lot of action. From the span of 9 episodes,
not a lot of action, and probably not a lot of emphasis on the global
impact of especially from taking inspiration and basically a clear sequel of the story of Watchmen. Especially since it's not necessarily as accessible as a series for being a love letter of the original graphic novel as it is.
But that's our review of Watchmen. Please, if you get the chance, watch this series. It deserves your attention. And even now, more than ever, with the times they are at this point, it is so relevant. And I feel as though there is so much knowledge and thought-provoking themes and commentary that could be, just drudged up from watching this series alone. Definitely worth the hype. Definitely worth the watch.
But as all, please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below. I want to hear what your thoughts. Let's discuss Watchmen and anything DC or anything media related.
Oh, please hit that little icon at the bottom, that little bell for more content here on our channel. Of course, I'm Aaron.
I'm Adam.
And this has been Seeking Media Productions.
See you later.